What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors walks into what he thinks is a friendly interview, only to find himself ambushed by accusations that threaten to destroy everything he's worked for? Today we're diving into the most explosive celebrity meltdown ever captured on live television, and trust me, you won't believe how this unfolds. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think really triggered George Clooney's epic breakdown. The morning started like any other day at the View Studios in New York. George Clooney had flown in specifically for this appearance, promoting his latest directorial project about humanitarian efforts in war-torn regions. He'd done hundreds of these interviews before, always the charming, composed gentleman we all know him to be. But something was different about this particular morning. Something that would change everything. As Clooney settled into his chair next to Joy Behar, the cameras rolled, and the show went live to millions of viewers across America. The audience applauded warmly, clearly excited to see the Oscar winner in person. Joy flashed her trademark smile. But those who know her well might have noticed something calculating behind her eyes. "George, welcome back to The View," Joy began, her voice carrying that familiar edge that regular viewers have come to recognize. "We're so excited to have you here to talk about your new film." "Thank you for having me, Joy," Clooney responded with his characteristic grace, adjusting his tie slightly. "I'm always happy to be here with you ladies." "Oh, I'm sure you are," Joy replied, and there was something in her tone that made Clooney's smile falter for just a moment. "You know, George, before we talk about your movie, I have to ask you about something that's been bothering me, and I think it's bothering a lot of our viewers, too." The other hosts, Whoopi, Sarah, and Sunny, exchanged glances. This wasn't in the pre-show discussion. Joy was going off script, and they could sense the shift in energy immediately. "Sure, what's on your mind?" Clooney asked, though his media-trained instincts were already putting him on alert. Joy leaned forward slightly, her expression hardening. "Well, George, you've made quite a career out of being this humanitarian, this voice of conscience in Hollywood. You speak out about injustice. You make these films about important causes. You marry a human rights lawyer. It's all very noble." "Thank you, I try to use my platform responsibly," Clooney replied carefully, unsure where this was heading. "But here's what I don't understand," Joy continued, her voice growing sharper. "How can you sit there and lecture the rest of us about morality and doing the right thing when your own past is filled with questionable choices? I mean, let's be honest about who George Clooney really island." The studio fell silent. Even the audience seemed to sense that something was wrong. Clooney's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but his voice remained steady. "I'm not sure what you're getting at, Joy." "Oh, I think you know exactly what I'm getting at," she shot back. "The gambling, the parties, the lifestyle you led for decades while people were suffering around the world. You want to be seen as this moral authority, but weren't you just another Hollywood playboy for most of your career?" Whoopi tried to interject. "Joy, maybe we should—" "No, Whoopi, I think our viewers deserve honesty." Joy cut her off, never taking her eyes off Clooney. "George, you've dated dozens of women, some barely out of their teens when you were in your 40s. You've thrown lavish parties while children starved. You've made millions from movies that glorify violence. And now you want us to believe you're some kind of saint?" The color was rising in Clooney's cheeks, but he kept his composure. "Joy, I've never claimed to be perfect. I've made mistakes, and I've learned from them. But I don't think my personal life from decades ago has anything to do with the work I'm doing now to help people. Doesn't it, though?" Joy pressed on relentlessly. "How convenient that you found your conscience right around the time you needed to rehabilitate your image. Right around the time you wanted to be taken seriously as a director and not just seen as a pretty face. That's not fair, and it's not accurate," Clooney replied, his voice carrying the first hint of real anger. "I've been involved in humanitarian causes since the late 90s. This isn't some recent image makeover." Joy laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Oh please, George. Sudan, Darfur. All of that started right when your movie career was beginning to plateau. Perfect timing, don't you think?" The other hosts were now visibly uncomfortable. Sarah was shaking her head slightly, and Sunny was looking down at her notes, as if trying to find a way to change the subject. But Joy wasn't done. "And let's talk about your wife," she continued, ignoring the shocked gasps from the audience. "Amal Clooney, the brilliant human rights lawyer. Tell me, George, do you think she would have married you if you were still just a bartender from Kentucky?" Or did she fall in love with George Clooney, the movie star, George Clooney, the brand? Now Clooney's hands were clenched on the arm of his chair. Joy, I'm going to stop you right there. You can attack me all you want, but you will not bring my wife into this. Why not? Joy shot back. She's part of your image rehabilitation project, isn't she? The perfect accessory for the reformed playboy. Beautiful, intelligent, accomplished. She makes you look serious, legitimate. That is completely out of line, Clooney said, his voice now carrying a dangerous edge that made even Joy pause for a moment. But she recovered quickly. Is it, George? Because I think our viewers are smart enough to see through the act. They can see that this whole humanitarian persona is just another role you're playing. And frankly, I think you've been playing it so long that even you believe it now. The studio was dead silent, except for the hum of the cameras. Clooney stared at Joy for a long moment, and when he finally spoke, his voice was low and controlled. But there was something underneath it that everyone could hear. Joy, in 30 years of doing interviews, no one has ever spoken to me the way you just did. And certainly no one has ever brought my wife into it like that. Well, maybe it's time someone did, Joy replied defiantly. Maybe it's time someone called out the hypocrisy instead of just fawning over you because you're George Clooney. Clooney nodded slowly, as if making a decision. When he looked up, his eyes were blazing with an anger that none of them had ever seen before. And what happened next would become the most talked about moment in daytime television history. You want to know about hypocrisy, Joy? Clooney said, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. Let's talk about hypocrisy. Let's talk about someone who sits behind this desk every day pretending to care about women's rights while consistently tearing down successful women in this industry. Joy's eyes widened. This wasn't the George Clooney she was expecting to face. Excuse me? You heard me, Clooney continued, leaning forward in his chair. How many times have you sat right there and criticized actresses for their choices, their appearances, their relationships? How many times have you reduced accomplished women to nothing more than their romantic lives or their looks? I don't know what you're talking about, Joy stammered, but her confidence was clearly shaken. Really? Because I remember you spending an entire segment last year discussing whether Jennifer Lawrence was too young for her husband. I remember you questioning whether Scarlett Johansson was a good mother because she continued working after having children. Should I continue? Whoopi tried to jump in. George, maybe we should take a breath here. No, Whoopi. Joy wanted to have this conversation, so let's have it, Clooney said, never taking his eyes off Joy. You want to talk about using people for image? Let's talk about how you've built your career on controversy and mean-spirited commentary. Let's talk about how you make your living by tearing other people down. Joy's face was flushing red. How dare you come on my show and attack me like this? Your show? Clooney laughed bitterly. This is The View, Joy, not the Joy Behar show. And I'm not attacking you, I'm simply holding you to the same standard you just tried to hold me to. You don't like it very much, do you? This is completely inappropriate, Joy shot back. I'm a journalist asking legitimate questions about your public persona. Journalist? Clooney's voice rose for the first time. Joy, you're a comedian who stumbled into a talk show gig. Don't confuse yourself with actual journalists who do real work. When was the last time you investigated anything? When was the last time you risked anything for a story? The other hosts were frozen. Sarah looked like she wanted to crawl under the table, and Sunny was staring at her hands. The audience was completely silent, watching this train wreck unfold in real time. I've been in this business for decades, Joy said, trying to regain her footing. I've earned my place at this table. Have you? Clooney challenged. Because from where I sit, it looks like you've earned your place by being willing to say the nasty things that other people won't say. You've made yourself indispensable by being the attack dog, the one who goes for the throat, when everyone else maintains some basic human decency. That's not fair, Joy protested, but her voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Tell me, Joy. What was your plan here today? Did you think you were going to tear me down and I was just going to sit here and take it? Did you think I was going to crumble under your questions and give you some viral moment to boost your ratings? Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Clooney wasn't finished. Because here's what I think happened, he continued, his voice steady but filled with contempt. I think you saw an opportunity to go after someone successful, someone respected, someone who's actually trying to make a difference in the world, and you couldn't resist taking your shots. I was asking legitimate questions about your credibility, Joy insisted weakly. No, you weren't, Clooney said firmly. You were trying to humiliate me on live television. You brought up my personal relationships from decades ago. You attacked my marriage. You questioned my motives for helping people who are suffering. That's not journalism, Joy. That's just cruelty. The studio remained eerily quiet. Even the camera operators seemed transfixed by what they were witnessing. And you know what the real tragedy is? Clooney continued. You actually had an opportunity today to have a meaningful conversation about the humanitarian crisis in the regions my film covers. You could have used your platform to shine a light on real suffering, real injustice. Instead, you chose to make it all about you and your petty need to tear someone down. Joy was now visibly shaking. Whether from anger or embarrassment, it was impossible to tell. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Tell me, Joy, how much money have you raised for charity this year? How many people have you helped? How many causes have you supported with anything more than lip service? I don't have to justify my charitable work to you, Joy snapped. No, you don't, Clooney agreed. But you also don't get to question mine. You don't get to sit there and suggest that my work helping refugees and genocide survivors is some kind of publicity stunt, while you contribute nothing but negativity to the world. Whoopi finally found her voice. Okay, I think we need to. We need to what, Whoopi? Joy interrupted, finally finding some fire again. Let him continue to attack me? Let him turn this around and make me the villain? You made yourself the villain the moment you decided to ambush me instead of having a professional interview, Clooney replied coldly. You made yourself the villain when you brought my wife into your petty attack. You made yourself the villain when you chose cruelty over curiosity. I'm not the one losing control here, Joy shot back desperately. Clooney smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Joy, I haven't lost control. This is me in complete control. This is me choosing to respond to your attack with the same energy you brought to this conversation. The difference is, everything I've said about you is true, and everything you said about me was speculation and spite. You're being completely unfair, Joy protested. Am I? Let me ask you something, Joy. Do you wake up every morning excited about the opportunity to make the world a little bit meaner? Do you go to sleep at night proud of the people you've hurt with your words? Joy stared at him, her mouth opening and closing like she was trying to find words that wouldn't come. Because that's what you do, Clooney continued relentlessly. Day after day you sit at this table and you make the world a little bit meaner, a little bit more cynical, a little bit more willing to tear each other down, and you call it entertainment. The silence stretched on, filled only by the sound of the studio's air conditioning and the barely audible whispers from the audience. Joy Behar, for perhaps the first time in her career, was completely speechless. But George Clooney wasn't done with her yet. Clooney leaned back in his chair, his eyes never leaving Joy's face. The silence had stretched so long that it was becoming uncomfortable for everyone in the studio, but he seemed perfectly content to let it hang there, watching her squirm. Finally, Joy found her voice again, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. This isn't how this was supposed to go. How was it supposed to go, Joy? Clooney asked quietly. Were you supposed to humiliate me, and I was supposed to just sit here and smile? Were you supposed to attack everything I care about, and I was supposed to thank you for the opportunity? I was doing my job, she said weakly. No, you weren't, Clooney replied, his voice gaining strength again. Your job is to interview guests, not to ambush them. Your job is to inform your audience, not to spread poison. Your job is to ask tough questions, not to make personal attacks. Joy straightened up slightly, trying to regain some composure. You can't just come on here and turn everything around like this. You're the guest. I'm the host. And as the host, you have a responsibility to your audience and to your guests, Clooney shot back. A responsibility you completely abandoned the moment you decided to make this personal. Whoopi cleared her throat nervously. Maybe we should move on to talking about the film. No, Whoopi, Joy interrupted, her voice growing stronger. I'm not going to be lectured by someone who thinks he's better than everyone else. George, you can sit there and act like you're some kind of saint, but the truth is you're just another privileged Hollywood actor who thinks his opinions matter more than everyone else's. Clooney's eyes flashed dangerously. There at Island, there's the real Joy Behar. When you can't win an argument with facts, you resort to personal attacks. When you can't defend your behavior, you try to tear the other person down. I'm not trying to tear you down, Joy insisted. I'm trying to show our viewers who you really are. Who I really am. Clooney stood up abruptly, causing Joy to flinch back in her chair. I'll tell you who I really am, Joy. I'm someone who uses his privilege to help people. I'm someone who puts his money where his mouth. Island. I'm someone who actually goes to the places where people are suffering instead of just talking about it from a comfortable studio in Manhattan. You don't have to stand up, Joy said nervously. Yes, I do, Clooney replied firmly. Because I'm not going to sit here while you continue to spread lies about me and my family. You want to know who I am? I'm someone who's spent millions of his own dollars helping refugees. I'm someone who's risked his life to document atrocities that the world was ignoring. I'm someone who married a woman who's dedicated her life to seeking justice for victims of human rights abuses. His voice was rising again, and the passion in it was undeniable. And you know what else I am, Joy? I'm someone who's had enough of people like you who think that tearing others down is a substitute for building anything up. Joy was now visibly shaken, but she made one last attempt to regain control. You can't speak to me like this. This is my show. These are my viewers. Your viewers? Clooney turned slightly toward the camera, speaking directly to the audience at home. Let me tell you something about your host, viewers. Joy Behar is someone who thinks that being cruel is the same thing as being clever. She thinks that being mean is the same thing as being honest. She's built her career on negativity, on cynicism, on making people feel smaller than they are. Turn the cameras off, Joy said desperately to someone off screen. Turn them off now. No, Clooney said firmly, stepping closer to Joy's position at the table. You wanted this conversation to be public, so let's keep it public. You wanted to embarrass me in front of millions of people, so let's see how you like being held accountable in front of those same people. Joy was now frantically looking around for help, but her co-hosts were just as stunned as everyone else. Sunny had her hand over her mouth, and Sarah looked like she might cry. You know what the saddest part of all this is, Joy? Clooney continued, his voice now filled with something that sounded almost like pity. You actually have a platform that could make a real difference. You have millions of viewers. You have influence. You have resources. And you choose to use all of that to spread negativity and cynicism. I'm not negative, Joy protested weakly. Aren't you? When was the last time you used this show to highlight something positive? When was the last time you brought on a guest to celebrate their achievements instead of trying to tear them down? When was the last time you left your audience feeling better about the world instead of worse? Joy opened her mouth, but no words came out. That's what I thought, Clooney said quietly. You can't even remember, can you? Because that's not who you are. You're someone who feeds on conflict, who thrives on drama, who gets her energy from making other people miserable. He turned back to the camera. Viewers, you deserve better than this. You deserve hosts who respect their guests, who ask tough questions without resorting to personal attacks, who use their platform to inform and inspire, rather than just to tear people down. You can't do this, Joy said, her voice breaking slightly. You can't just hijack my show. I'm not hijacking anything, Clooney replied calmly. I'm simply responding to your attack with the same energy you brought to this conversation. The difference is, I'm telling the truth. He looked around at the other hosts. Whoopi, Sarah, Sunny, you're better than this. You don't have to sit here and watch while your colleague turns this show into her personal vendetta platform. Finally, Whoopi found her voice. Joy, maybe we should... Don't you dare, Joy snapped at her co-host. Don't you dare take his side. I'm not taking anyone's side, Whoopi replied quietly. But this has gone way too far. Clooney nodded at Whoopi gratefully, then turned back to Joy one final time. Joy, I came here today to talk about a film that highlights real human suffering, real injustice, real problems that need attention. Instead, you chose to make this about your need to attack someone you see as an easy target. You thought you could ambush me and I would just take it quietly. He leaned down slightly, bringing himself closer to eye level with the seated host. But here's what you forgot, Joy. I didn't get where I am by backing down from bullies. I didn't build my career by letting people walk all over me. And I certainly didn't marry the woman I married by being someone who stays quiet when principles matter. Joy looked up at him, and for a moment, there was something almost like fear in her eyes. So the next time you think about ambushing a guest, Clooney continued softly, the next time you think about making someone's personal life fair game for your entertainment, the next time you think about attacking someone's family to score cheap points, remember this moment. Remember how it felt when someone finally stood up to you. He straightened up and looked directly into the camera one more time. And to everyone watching at home, remember that you have a choice about what kind of media you consume, what kind of behavior you reward with your attention, and what kind of world you want to live in. With that, George Clooney removed his microphone, placed it carefully on the table, and walked off the set, leaving behind the most stunned audience in daytime television history, and one very quiet Joy Behar. That was the moment that changed everything, folks. George Clooney's complete destruction of Joy Behar's attempt to humiliate him became the most shared clip in television history. And it showed the world what happens when someone finally stands up to media bullies. What did you think of Clooney's response? Was he right to fight back the way he did? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more explosive celebrity moments like this one.